Today's video marks the start of a brand new lore series which aims to assist you in establishing a solid foundation of Dungeons & Dragons lore. Now, each video in this series is geared towards enriching your Baldur's Gate 3 experience, spoiler-free, of course, in hopes of being able to help you comprehend the intricate and vast world that this game takes place in. I do want to extend a special thank you to all channel members and patrons who make this type of content much more possible. Without further ado, let us commence with a tale of the Dead 3. Larian Studios with Baldur's Gate 3 has stated publicly that we'll be finding ourselves on the center stage of a complot hatched by none other than the Dead 3, the gods of murder, tyranny, and death. So this is a great time to tell the story of their ascension to godhood. This particular story comes directly from a book that's in possession of a mage named Firebead Elvenhair in Baldur's Gate 1. In ages past, there was but one god of strife, death, and the dead, and he was known as Jurgle, lord of the end of everything. Jurgle fomented and fed on the discord among mortals and powers alike. When beings slew each other in their quest for power or in their hatred, he welcomed them into his shadowy kingdom of eternal gloom. As all things died, everything came to him eventually, and over time he built his power into a kingdom unchallenged by any other god. Eventually, however, he grew tired of his duties, for he knew them too well. Without challenge, there is nothing, and in nothingness, there is only gloom. In such a state, the difference between absolute power and absolute powerlessness is undetectable. During this dark era, there arose three powerful mortals, Bane, Bhaal, and Myrkul, who lusted after the power Jurgle wielded. The trio forged an unholy pact, agreeing that they would dare to seek such ultimate power or die in the attempt. Over the length and breadth of the realms they strode, seeking powerful magic and spells and defying death at every turn. No matter what monster they confronted or what spells they braved, the three mortals emerged unscathed at every turn. Eventually, the trio destroyed one of the 7 lost gods, and they each seized a portion of his divine essence for themselves. The trio then journeyed into the Grey Waste and sought out the Castle of Bone. Through armies of skeletons, legions of zombies, hordes of non-corporeal undead, and a gauntlet of liches, they battled. Eventually, they reached the object of their lifelong quest, the Bone Throne. "I claim this throne of evil," shouted Bane the Tyrant. "I'll destroy you before you can raise a finger," threatened Bhaal the Assassin. "And I shall imprison your essence for eternity," promised Myrkul the Necromancer. Jurgle arose from his throne with a weary expression and said, "The throne is yours. I have grown weary of this empty power. Take it if you wish. I promise to serve and guide you as your seneschal until you grow comfortable with the position." Before the stunned trio could react, the Lord of the Dead continued, "Who among you shall rule?" The trio immediately fell to fighting amongst themselves while Jurgle looked on with indifference. When eventually it appeared that either they would all die of exhaustion or battle on for an eternity, the Lord of the End of Everything intervened. "After all you have sacrificed, would you come away with nothing? Why don't you divide the portfolios of the office and engage in a game of skill for them?" asked Jurgle. Bane, Bhaal, and Myrkul considered the god's offer and agreed. Jurgle took the heads of his 3 most powerful liches and gave them to the trio that they would compete by bowling the skulls. Each mortal rolled a skull across the Grey Waste, having agreed that the winner would be he who bowled the furthest. Malar the Beast Lord arrived to visit Jurgle at this moment. After quickly ascertaining that the winner of this contest would get all of Jurgle's power, he chased off after the 3 skulls to make sure that the contest would be halted until he had a chance to participate for part of the prize. Bane, Bhaal, and Myrkul again fell to fighting as it was obvious that their sport was ruined, and again Jurgle intervened. "Why don't you allow Lady Luck to decide so that you don't have to share with the beast?" The trio agreed, and Jurgle broke off his skeletal finger bones and gave them to the players. When Malar returned from chasing the skulls, he found that the trio had just finished a game of knucklebones. Bane cried out triumphantly, "As winner I choose to rule for all eternity as the ultimate tyrant. I can induce hatred and strife at my whim, and all will bow down before me while in my kingdom." Myrkul, who had won second place, declared, "But I choose the dead, and by doing so, I truly win. Because all you are lord over, Bane, will eventually be mine. All things must die, even gods." Bhaal, who finished third, demurred, "I choose death, and it is by my hand that all you rule, Lord Bane, will eventually pass to Lord Myrkul. Both of you must pay honor to me and obey my wishes, since I can destroy your kingdom, Bane, by murdering your subjects, and I can starve your kingdom, Myrkul, by staying my hand." Malar growled in frustration, but could do nothing, and yet again, only the beasts were left for him. And Jurgil merely smiled, for he had been delivered. And that is the story of the Dead Three's ascension to godhood. They would go on to reign over their respective realms for many, many years. Bane, the god of tyranny, would spread hate and tyranny across all of Faerun, as he worked on his ultimate plan of achieving total domination. He exerted special influence over a powerful faction known as the Zhentarim. Myrkul, the god of the dead, received plenty of offerings at funerals, and he took great pride in terrorizing mortals with their fear of death. He wasn't as widely worshipped like Bane was, more so he was dreaded, and his influence spread through the fear of death. Bhaal, the lord of murder, would grow to immense power, and he reveled in the fact that he could take lives away from Bane, who was seeking to grow an ultimate army of power, or stay his hand, giving less death to Myrkul. He was a wholly evil and sadistic god who only lived to hunt and kill, and the mere existence of living beings aroused within him an intense craving for demise and devastation. Despite the Dead Three's immense power, it was not enough, and Bane and Myrkul would go on to steal the Tablets of Fate from the Overgod Ao, as they believed that some of the Overgod's power was derived from these powerful tablets. When Ao discovered that the tablets were missing, and no gods took responsibility, he cast them all down from their divine realms to walk the planet in their vulnerable mortal avatar forms. This time is known as the Time of Troubles, and it took place in 1358 DR, which is around a decade before Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, and over 130 years before Baldur's Gate 3 takes place. During the Time of Troubles, Bhaal was killed by Cyric, Bane slain by Torm, and Myrkul's avatar was disintegrated by midnight. All three gods had prepared for their deaths though. Bane had created a scion for the purpose of his own regeneration, and this was through his son named Zvim. Bhaal had impregnated countless mortal women who would give birth to Bhaal spawn, which held his essence. When the last Bhaal spawn was to die, Bhaal would then be resurrected. The story of the Bhaal spawn is of course what Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 revolve around. I'll be sure to give summaries of those games in the coming months. Myrkul was able to have the last remains of his energy stored in an artifact of great power, known as the Crown of Horns. A long story short, because I will likely be doing a dedicated video for each of the Dead Three, all three gods returned to the Faerunian pantheon, and they continued to exert their influence. In present-time Forgotten Realms, the 1490s, which is the time that Baldur's Gate 3 takes place in, the Dead Three are still around, but they walk as quasi-divine mortals due to their choice to stay on the planet of Toril during an event known as the Second Sundering. The Second Sundering brought significant changes to the Faerunian pantheon and changes to how deities approached mortals, and this resulted in reduced power for many of the gods that chose to stay. The Dead Three wanted to continue their quest for influence, power, and destruction over the continent of Faerun, where they already have a considerable following, and they're steadily gaining more worshippers in their pursuit to become the ultimate power in the land. Although they are not as powerful as before, they are still extremely formidable and power-hungry. Bane is said to be leading the trio in their efforts. They seem to have great influence over the city of Baldur's Gate, and if you've played Baldur's Gate 3's early access, you would also know that something really big is going on involving these three. And that'll be it for today's lore video. Really excited to kick off this new lore series. As of right now, I'm planning on hopefully doing one a week. I might skip a week here and there and releasing them on Sunday afternoons, and that is Eastern time. Once again, big thank you to channel members and patrons. More on that in the video description. I'll catch you on the next one.